Ah, there you are. Come in, come in, oh my wonderful little friends. Welcome, welcome to the spooky dark. Yes, I am your host, Dr. Jimmy, and tonight, on this strange and mysterious evening, Tuesday, I would like to prepare for you the final house cocktail for Halloween Horror Nights 28. Yes, at last, the last cocktail for the haunted houses, which will be for the most recently revealed house, the last of 10 to be revealed this year. Scary Tales. Deadly Ever After. Yes. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too. Oh, sorry, my inner witch was trying to get out. It's the lovely evening of Tuesday, September 4th. And that means it's only 10 nights. 10 nights to Horror Nights. Oh, joy. Next week, Friday. Oh, I can't hardly wait. Of course, before I proceed to concoct this libation, I would like to show off the T-shirt of the day night. And it's a lovely Halloween Horror Night shirt I got last year with little Billy from Saw. Yes, that was last year's Saw shirt. Have you ever saw such a shirt? On the other sleeve it has Halloween Horror Nights 2017 on it. Let's get closer. It's harder to see in the dark, but there it goes. Oh, it's Lenny. She went right by. Sneaky pussums. Alrighty. So, I need a cocktail for a haunted house that features primarily, as its lead character, the Wicked Witch of the West. Don't want to water this one down, it might melt. Ew. You have no power here. Now, depart before someone drops a house on you too. I used to be able to do that better. There was a little butterfly in the throat thing, but I can't quite do that. I forget exactly what she said too. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. All right, I have to come up with something witchy poo. Well, not witchy poo. She was in the Puffin stuff, not Blood and Guts, but HR Puffin stuff back in the early 70s when I was a wee lad. And I remember a wonderful Halloween special from my boyhood with Paul Land, and he had on his show Kiss. That was amazing. Back in the time when Kiss was just awesome in the early 70s. And then, of course, the Witchy Poo was on the show, and so was Margaret Hamilton, I believe, as the Wicked Witch of the West. So it brings it all back circle, doesn't it? There you go. A Poland Halloween special. Look it up. I think it's on home video somewhere. It's that time of year to get all Halloweener. Yes, go out and hallow your wiener. Oh, that sounds naughty. I don't want a Halloween. I like the solid ween, if you know what I mean. Ha, ha, ha. That sounds naughtier. Oh, dear. Where was I? Oh, yes. A witchy cocktail. Yes. So, I do have the most witchy of alcoholic spirits, which you might remember I used early last year. I think it was... When was it? It was like March, April. Very shortly after the announcement last year of American Horror Story in March, just before, at the end of March, they announced American Horror Story last year, 2017. And so in the first week of April, I believe, I made the American Horror Story cocktails, right about April 2nd or April 3rd, somewhere right in there. I think April 2nd, maybe. It was after I did the April Fool's videos about Volcano Bay. Oh, God, that was silly of me. But I did the witch cocktail, the one for Coven. I used an ingredient, I'm pretty certain at that time, which, well, was just plain witchy. The most witchiest of all liqueurs, which is called La Strega. Or not La Strega, it's called Liquore Strega, which literally means, you know, witch liqueur. Strega means witch. And there's a, as I've pointed out before, there's a witch on the label right here. And here we see a whole freaking coven dancing around a tree with old Nick himself. And then up here is what is that? That's where they make it. I thought there was a broomstick somewhere. Oh, now she's got one over here. She's got a broomstick, and on the here's the witch with the broomstick. And this is decidedly witchy liqueur, which is a digestif. It's very good. So you have a big Italian meal. You start off with an aperitif. Yeah? It gives you the makes you like an appetizer, gets you ready to eat. And they like Campari or something, and Amaro, some others. But at the end of the meal, after you've had a lot, a digestif will help you digest, and usually it's a sweeter liqueur, and that's what Strega normally is. So it's a bit sweet, although it's herbaceous, you know, an herbal liqueur, but it's also quite a bit sweeter. So I will now bring out my ice-filled, frosty, ice-filled stainless steel cocktail shaker and my little stainless steel jigger, which I've used before, and I shall pour a nice amount of this golden liquid Strega into the jigger. Oh, I think I used it all up. Yes. Fortunately, that's just about enough for the cocktail. And that's it, I'm out. But you might have noticed when I was showing you the bottle before, the liqueur is bright yellow. And that's important, I think, for the purposes of what we're doing. Because I could say it's because if you remember your literature, yellow was the colour of the West. Remember, in Oz, everything had its, you know, the East was blue. Munchkin land was all blue. The southern land, I think they're called the Quadlings or something. Quadhogs, or no, Quahog is in Rhode Island in Family Guy world. No, I think they're called the Quadlings were red, and in the north, the Gillikins, I think is where that was called up there, in the land of the north, purple was the colour, and the west, the Winkies, everything was yellow. In the heart of the kingdom, in the city of Oz itself, it was emerald green, naturally. Sort of like, if you go from east where it's blue to west where it's yellow, it meets and turns green. Interesting thought. Well, actually, that's not why. I selected it because of the witch associations. Oh, by the way, if you notice the crest, you might say, oh, Switzerland. No, no, no. That is, see the crown on it? This is the royal symbol of the House of Savoy, the former royal family of Italy. They got kicked out back about the time that Mussolini took over, and the Garibaldi and all that. Garibaldi that was 1860 something. Never mind. But in the but after all of that, that last royal family of Italy got kicked out. Now they're not they still exist, but not one member of the family is allowed to set foot on Italian soil now by the Constitution. They just don't want them coming back and trying to take over. Interesting. So here we have, but you can put the crest on the liquor, I guess. So here is, we pour the Strega, the nice golden yellow liqueur with witchy associations, into the cocktail shaker. Now, as I pointed out rather obliquely, but I should have been more explicit because I was getting at something, yellow plus blue makes green. And of course, the Wicked Witch of the West is most commonly associated with the colour green, even though she rules over the land of the Winkies. Why? Because Margaret Hamilton had that green makeup when she first played the witch in 1939, and she's been green ever since. It's like Kermit the Frog, like Bruce Banner when he gets really angry. Yes. So, absolutely, that's the colour of the witch, and therefore we need a green cocktail. Well, I wasn't going to go make it out of vegetable juice like the other one that I had to be made green. No, that wouldn't be right. This one has to be more magical. And so I know that I need to add something blue to something yellow to make it green. Ha ha! And of course, the ingredient that's always been used to make cocktails blue is blue curacao, an orange liqueur that is orange flavor but blue in color. And it's most famously used in drinks like the Blue Hawaii, which sometimes turns out green because you put too much pineapple juice and the yellow juice, you get the green. So it's really more like a green Hawaii sometimes. But in this case, we want it to turn green. So here's the blue curacao, and I'm going to put some of that into just enough, not the whole thing, but just enough, because I want it to mix with the Strega and make it all go green. So we pour the blue curacao in. Now, there's another factor. Strega, as I said, is a digestif, therefore sweet. Blue curacao is also very, very sweet. This cocktail might be a little too sicky sweet. Now that might be appropriate for our witch if it was Glinda, but it's not. We're talking about Elphaba, at least that's what she's called in the musical. So she's not that sweet, she's got an edge to her. So I need something, maybe the wizard's green elixir, no, something just to take the sweet edge off. Some sort of bitters. I looked at a couple of different types, Jerry Thomas, but that's got too much of a clove flavour. I don't think that would right, and I don't want to use Peychaud. And I decided I'd use some orange bitters because it wouldn't alter the flavour of the cocktail too much because the flavour of orange is already in it, but it would take the sweet edge off, a little bit of seasoning for your cocktail, and would make it work together better and not too cloying. And this is, at least that was my theory. I haven't tasted it yet. So the Bitter Truth Orange Bitters, which comes from Germany, very good bitters. We're just going to put several dashes in because I believe in using bitters and not being frightened of them. And then after that, it's time to put the thing on top and give it a really good shake. Witchy, witchy magic. How did that go? The spell she did in Wicked, Hecubus, I don't remember how it worked, but it turned the prince, the one prince of the Winkies, into the Scarecrow. Ooh, spoiler. Okay, I'm going to spoil Wicked for you. because I love this. I utterly love this. Not the spoiling, but the twist. The twist. Because once you see Wicked, you go back and watch The Wizard of Oz, and it's like you can never see it again, because now you know. Now you know that the Scarecrow was fucking the witch the whole time, and all that shit about fire, Scarecrow, was all a ruse. See, the Scarecrow was fucking smart, and he and the witch had a whole plan which conned Dorothy and everyone else, because the Tin Man was a fascist pig. See, and he knew the Tin Man, being a fascist pig, would never let them rest, and so the witch and the Scarecrow, who was her boyfriend all along, and she turned him into the Scarecrow because the villagers were going to kill him, and they knew that in Scarecrow form they couldn't break his bones or hurt him. So she cast a spell on him to make him immortal, because she didn't want him to die. And they set up the whole story about the water. There was already a rumor that water would kill her, and the witch knew that was bullshit. But the Scarecrow used that, and he knew, but he was actually the Prince of the Winkies all along. He grew up in that castle. That was his own castle. He knows where all the secret passages are. So he sets it up. So Dorothy splashes the water when he's being threatened by fire. They staged that. And so, yeah, she splashes the witch with water. She goes down a trap door that he knew about. She gets away, makes it look like she melted. So she fakes her death. Later on, he slips back, and he and the witch live happily ever after. That's the secret story of Oz according to Wicked. Okay, I spoiled it for you. Sorry, but hey, I couldn't help it. You should know it already. The damn musical's been out since 2003 or something, a long time. So if you haven't already learned that, you're stupid. You should have seen it a long time ago. I know there've been like road shows through here, and you can get the album and listen to it. So you should already know. And if you don't already know, it means you didn't care anyway. But I love that. Okay, now that and the wizard was actually Elphaba's dad. Yeah, there you go. So, going to pour this in, and I hope to crap it turns out green. It should. That's kind of hard to see. It is sort of a lovely green colour, but you can't quite see it. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to shine a magical light through. Oh, there it is. Can you? Why that? There it is. So it should look lovely green and spooky. This light isn't doing. Does this light even work? I guess it does, but it's not very bright. I guess it doesn't really. Just a little spot. Got to put it through here so you can see as I move it around. On the other side, it should come out kind of green. Oh, the light's a bit blue already, so I don't know. Maybe if I hold it closer, it'll show up better. Can you see that it's green? I guess you can, but unfortunately it's so dark in here. I didn't mean it to be quite that dark. The cocktail is not as dark as it looks, but in the light here, if I do something, did that do anything? Ooh, everything turned pink for a minute. Now it's gotten back. That was weird. Sometimes if I cover up the not the whole camera, but if I cover it for a minute and then let go, it changes the aspect of the lighting somehow. I think that's how some things happen. Okay, can you see it's green? All right, it is green. Okay, I've established the greenification of the cocktail. You can give it a taste. Oh, that's interesting. It's got many different notes, because there's herbaceous notes and the orange. It is sweet, but not too sweet. I think the bitters was a good idea. It tastes for all the world like some mystical potion from another world you can only travel to through really bad weather. Oh dear, I forgot about that. You know, all those storms coming this way. We may end up going deadly ever after for real. Auntie Em, Uncle Henry, it's a twister. Yes. Oh, Toto, Toto. And then Toto says, what was that gag? Well, Dorothy says, I remember. You were there. And you, Scarecrow. And Toto says, I remember. The rain's down in Africa. Because Toto. All right, never mind. Pour some more of this mysterious liquid into my cocktail glass. It's actually quite good. So it's El Fabulous. Now here we are then with this mysterious elixir, which, like Joe Grey gave to Elphaba's munchkin mum after he stopped her and got her knocked up. That's why the Wicked Witch had real powerful magic more than any other witch in Oz. It's because she was a hybrid between the wizard who came from our reality and the people of Oz. So she was a child of two worlds. At least that's what Maguire came up with in his novel. And it's believed that the snake oil salesman who landed in the hot air balloon and slipped over to this cute munchkin chick and had an affair with her, kept giving her this green elixir that was supposed to make her horny, I guess, but it also caused a change in Elphaba's appearance when she was born. Her skin was the same bright emerald green color. I've completely ruined the musical. Well, no, I haven't. I mean, you go to these musicals, very often you know the story. I mean, who doesn't know what's going to happen in West Side Story? You know it's Romeo and Juliet, so you know they both die at the end because that's what happens in Romeo and Juliet. You know, it's like, but you don't know how they're going to carry it off and what the music is going to be if you're not familiar with that, and that always captivates you. So go see Wicked if it comes by in a road show, or if you're incredibly fortunate and have the funds to go all the way, to New York City and see it in the Gershwin Theatre. That's the best way to see it. I did that back in 2011. I would have liked to have seen it, you know, way back at the beginning when the, 2002, 2003, somewhere around there, when it first opened way back then, and they still had Idina Menzel as Elphaba and Kristen Chenoweth as Glinda, or Galinda, who becomes Glinda, and of course Joe Grey as the wizard, way back when it first opened all those, was it 13? No, wait a minute, that would be, 13, about 13 years ago. That would have been terrific, but I didn't have the chance then, because the tickets were always so hard to get. But I saw it then 2011, on the opening night of Halloween Horror Nights 21, yes. Well, everyone was here singing Hello to Lady Luck. I was in New York watching Wicked on Broadway, and it was marvelous. And then that's why in 2011, I didn't get to the opening weekend of Horror Nights that year. I came the second weekend because I'd been up in New York the first weekend. That is actually quite good. I'm liking it more and more. Do I have any more of this? Pour up. I think that's the last of it. So, keep an eye on the time. 9:21. At 10 o'clock tonight is the debut of the new Universal Blumhouse co-produced television program, The Purge, which is the TV series version of The Purge. And tonight it's debuting on 2 different channels simultaneously, USA Network and Sci-Fi, at the same time at 10 p.m. tonight. So I'm going to make sure I catch that tonight. And it's a little bit more than a half hour. So I need to finish this video before that comes on. Yes. And I am rather looking forward to the haunted house. It should be quite sensational. I talked a bit about it recently because I did the house announcement videos. But indeed, it does take us into the realm of fairy, the realm of tales of, you know, Grimm and Hans Andersen, and in this case also L. Frank Baum. Should be quite interesting, their interpretations. There have been so many different interpretations of The Wizard of Oz since it was originally written at the turn of the century. I think it was published in 1901 or 1911 or something. I have a copy over there. I could go run over, pick up the book and look in it. But I'm not going to do that because I'm a lazy bastard. No, I'm sorry. That was a fishing captain who took his chums out for a cruise. But no, I don't feel like that's worth doing it. But there have been so many different versions, including, of course, the 1939 classic musical from MGM. But there were other versions before that, even silent movies. And there was one of the better interpretations was a sort of funk gospel African-American version that came out first on Broadway with Stephanie Mills when I was a little boy. I wasn't able to get to New York. I was out in Hawaii, of all places. Kind of hard to get to Broadway when you're living in Honolulu. And you're not, you know, you don't really have the funds to fly all the way to New York City at that time when I was a little kid. But I got the cast album and I listened to it over and over and over again. And when they had the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade or anything else that showed clips of Broadway musicals, I would watch it in the Tony Awards. I was so, wow, this new version, you know, The Wiz. And my grandmother was like, oh, it'll never be better than the original. And I was thinking, you wouldn't say that if it wasn't all black people, you racist. Well, she wasn't really a racist, but she was born in Georgia in the year 1900. So there were some residual traces that she worked on, but she was never able to get rid of entirely, you know. So, and, but I'm fairly certain it had something to do with it. She never could appreciate that sort of music and culture, but I did. I loved it, and I love all the songs from The Wiz, especially at the end, Everybody Rejoice. I just, you know, I start jumping up and down and dancing when I hear that. It's embarrassing, but hey, I am a gay guy. Yeah, I gotta love my musicals. And there was the film version with Diana Ross and Michael Jackson and Nipsey Russell. And trivia. The original Cowardly Lion in the Broadway version of The Wiz was the original cop in the Village People, who was also the husband of Felicia Ayers Allen, who later became Felicia Rashad. You know, remember on the Cosby Show, she played Mrs. Huxtable. But her first husband was the guy from the Village People. The first cop who got fired from the Village People when he thought he was the big star. They replaced him with another one, right about 1979 or so, 1980, somewhere in there. They replaced him, and they had a different lead singer after that. But that's the sort of trivia. And but The Wiz was terrific. It's got a place here, and of course there are other versions. There's a dark and creepy version that's based on some of the later Oz books. It's called Return to Oz, I think, and in this one, it's a live-action film that was actually made by Disney, but at a time when Disney was trying to get away from its family kiddie, and they wanted to be more dark and edgy, and so they made a creepy as shit, scary ass version of the story where Dorothy's kind of in an insane asylum, and is she really just fucking crazy, or has she really been to Oz? And she's played by Fairuza Balk, remember from The Craft? This was before that, when she was a bit younger. So she's a bit creepy witchy already, because she's played like the uber goth chick ever. Fairuza Balk is playing Dorothy. And then she goes, and they have the bit with Princess Langolin, or whatever, the one whose heads come off. And from, I think, is that from, I'm trying to remember the Oz books. There's The Wizard of Oz, The Land of Oz. This must be from Ozma of Oz. And The Wheelers, because that's when Dorothy returned to Oz, was in Ozma of Oz, which was the third Oz book. And it's adapted from bits and pieces of these different stories that switched around a little bit. And they leave out some of the more intriguing characters, like the great transgender hero of Oz. Do you realize that Frank Baum created one of the greatest transgender characters in all of American literature way back in the fucking first century of the 20th century, in the 1900s, with Ozma, because Ozma spent her whole childhood as a boy named Tip. So she was a girl when she was born, she was made into a boy, and then Tip becomes a girl after that, and has all kinds of problems at first trying to figure out, you know, am I a boy or a girl? And so Ozma has, you know, been both. And then she becomes queen and ruler of all Oz. And that's a fascinating whole thing, the sort of gender transitioning going on in these books way back in the you know, more than, it's 100 years ago. This is the first decade. No, this is the second decade of this. So it's more than 100 years ago. My God, L. Frank Baum was way ahead of his time on this shit. So it's, even if he was racist about Native Americans, that's another story. So that's rather amazing stuff. They explored that in the recent television program called, was it called Emerald City, I think? There have been so many adaptations and different versions, but there was one on TV recently that had some, it was sort of like Once Upon a Time, but a little more edgy, about Dorothy going to Oz and encountering all these different things in a different sort of twisted way. And all happening in the current day. And Toto's a big German Shepherd police dog. But it was cleverly done. But they had Tip and Ozma, and you don't see that as often in movies because they usually leave that character alone. And as I said, the one with Fairuza Balk back in the late 80s, there was these creepy, or early 90s, I don't remember the year it came out, but it was awesome and dark and creepy. And Tick-Tock the Clockwork Man was in that, another great character from Oz. You don't see that often. and the wheelers, creepy, horrible creatures that have wheels instead of hands and legs, and so they wheel about like, you know, skipping around, and they're just gruesome and horrific. So what the hell was Baum smoking back then? I mean, he had, you know, a wild imagination, and some of his stuff is, you know, fantastic and glorious, but it's also nightmarish as fuck. I mean, he really got some scary shit in those Oz books that you forget about. You think, oh, it's all happy, but well, he invented the Wicked Witch, and don't forget about the flying monkeys. In the original Wizard of Oz, it wasn't in the movie, so people won't forget about these horrific monsters that were part bear and part lion and part, you know, the whole lion and tigers and bears. Oh my! You know where that came from? It came from these awful creatures. What are they called? The Kalidas or something, or the Katie? I forget what they were called, but they were horrific chimeras that were part lion and part bear and part tiger, and they were horrific, ferocious beasts that were lurking in the forest. That were, and there was this whole. There was some really weird, creepy, scary shit in those books. You know, the Gnome King and his whole evil subterranean kingdom is like one of the major villains throughout the Oz books, is this weird king of the gnomes. There's some dark characters in this shit that no one ever touches, because they rarely adapt anything. You know, everyone thinks about that first movie in 1939. And they forget all the other stories and the whole wealth of Ozian lore, which you should take a look at, because it's really intricate, and there's lots of creepy things in there. Lots of bright, happy fairy stories, but also there's an edge to it. The best fairy tales, well, are scary already, and you only need to twist them a little bit to make scary tales, because there's always been a darkness behind all of these, you know. There's always been something sinister, something dark and troubling. Look at all the fantastic, creepy witches and she-devils that have populated all of the classic Disney fairy tale movies. They didn't have to invent them whole cloth. They were already in the fairy stories. You know, from Maleficent to the Wicked Queen to, you know, all of those frightening, nasty ladies like the wicked stepmothers and old witches and bad fairies that lurk through all of these. They're an archetype of the Dark Mother, which is all part of our collective unconscious. And so you find them again and again and again in literature and fable and fantasy and mythology, including the Wicked Witch of the West. She's there. She's a part of us all, you know, because we have to get a bit young. You're only as young as you feel, right? They have the anima and the animus, and every male has an anima, a female spirit, a female part of their consciousness, and sometimes it can get dark, and it might result in them becoming misogynist, or sometimes it can turn them into one mean drag queen. You never know how it might express itself. And there's also the shadow, and you know, I've always loved, of course, Jung's ideas of psychoanalysis were a bit wonky, a bit extreme, a bit far out, and maybe a bit esoteric, and not quite as down to earth as Freud, and neither of them are taken seriously nowadays by most psychologists. But I've always loved it because it got into some pretty weird territory. You know, Jung believed in supernatural, not necessarily spirits, but things just happening because it was time for synchronicities and just almost magic. And maybe there's something to it all, because I've seen some weird shit in my life, I can tell you. But that's time for another day. Stories I can talk about later, because it is now past 9:30, and soon it'll be time for the annual purge. And I have to go out and shoot some people and disembowel them. And no, I won't, because I'm a puss. I would stay home and put up barricades. Yes, I would, and hide in my safe room somewhere with my kitty cat and say, nobody purge me, please, please. Because, yeah, I'm big and fat, and I couldn't make it 5 seconds on the streets if purging was going on. But I'll sit down and watch it on the telly, because it's only a TV show. I hope. Oh, and of course, that's a different house anyway. So this was the final house cocktail for this year, and I've drunk the whole thing, and so I'm drunk, because there was quite a bit in this stuff, and I put it all in the cup, and I've actually drunk it all. And so I have finished off the liquid stuff that happens when Dorothy melted the witch, unless Wicked was right and she actually managed to slip into the basement where she later met Fiyero, aka the Scarecrow, and they got it on while listening to some funky soul sounds from The Wiz. Yeah. Because I'm a mean old lion. No. That would be funny. Okay, so I'm sorry, I was just imagining that, and it made me laugh, because I've had a cocktail. And so this is the last house cocktail for 2018. But I have to make zone cocktails, yes, for the harvest and for Vamp 85. Maybe I'll make some kind of booze with nougats in it. No, I don't know. And then there's The Revenge of Chucky. Ooh, that sounds like exciting. What could I make with that? Something. Ade due dambala, give me the cocktail recipe, I beg of you. Okay, and then there will be Twisted Traditions, and was there another one? That's 4. I think there's a 5th scare zone somewhere. Let's see. There's, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Da, 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 da. Maybe some ice cream might be in that one. Or cotton candy. Have to figure it all out. Haven't figured those cocktails out yet. Some of them might be made in park at the event, like I've done before, and soon probably. I might start them once the event starts to get a better feel for the zones, but I'm starting to get an idea now that I know that the harvest is another Altars of Horror, basically, only with some Barney stuff added. Not Dino Barney, but, barn-y, like a barn. So we want to put some horse poop and hay in it to make it smell like, ooh. No. But we might be making something like I did last year, a bit of a suicide cocktail, where I get ingredients from all the IP House cocktails. Something from the Stranger Things cocktail, and something from the Halloween cocktail, and an ingredient that was in the Poltergeist cocktail. And put them into one drink and see if it kills us or not. Yes, maybe I'll do something like that if I haven't used up ingredients like I used up my Strega. We'll figure it all out eventually, which means I'll probably have to get another bottle of Jägermeister before I make the harvest cocktail, because I might want to put a little bit of purge in it, because I have a strong suspicion, based on some chain link fence and barbed wire that I've seen on the internet, that one of those things in the harvest, along with Halloween and Trick or Treat, will also be Purge and Happy Death Day, and probably Poltergeist and Stranger Things will be in there too. So, but I'll wait a bit on the zone cocktails, After all, I've got till November 3rd to get them all done. And maybe once the event starts and we know what's going on, I can go ahead and do a cocktail for any chainsaw roaming hordes that might be hoarding about, or chaining about, or sawing things. So, with that in mind, I also would like to continue Horror Nights history, and hopefully I'll do that in the near future. And thus, this is Dr. Jimmy signing off again. Remember, drink responsibly if you drink at all, and if you're under 21, don't drink at all. Yes, and hopefully in 10 nights we'll all be together in the dense, thick fog, listening to spooky-ass music, getting ourselves scared into horrible frights deep in the spooky dark, where we all belong. Good night, my children.